All right, and it looks like we are live. So welcome to some Torah Tuesdays. Phil, it looks like you have disappeared, so you might want to make your way back to your desk. Let me share there you go. Have what we're actually going to be studying. It's our Torah text. If you want to be able to actually look at this text on your own and flip through it on your own, not just have to follow through the live stream here at mishkon.org, under the COVID section for adult education, we have a link so you can actually view the PDF yourself. All right. And it seems that Phil is just gone. So we will get started, and when he comes and joins us, we'll bring him up to speed. So either way, this week's Torah portion is Parshat Emor. And there's a lot going on in the Parsha, but there's a story at the very end of the Parsha that I find very interesting. It's a story about Shlomit bat Divri, or specifically the son of Shlomit bat Divri. So I'm going to read I'll read the source, and then we're going to take a look to see what some of the commentators have to tell us about what really is going on here, because it really is quite a strange situation. It's not entirely clear. It also just seems very disjointed just to appear here in the middle of the Torah portion. So we're looking at Leviticus chapter 24, verse 10. There came out among the Israelites one whose mother was Israelite and whose father was Egyptian. And a fight broke out in the camp between that half Israelite and a certain Israelite. The son of the Israelite woman pronounced the name, God's name, in blasphemy, and he was brought to Moses. Now his mother's name was Shlomit bat Divri, Shlomit, the daughter of Divri, in the tribe of Dan. And he was placed in custody until the decision of Adonai should be made clear to them. And Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, take the blasphemer outside the camp, and let all who are within hearing lay their hands upon his head, and let the whole community stone him. And to the Israelite people speak thus: anyone who blasphemes God shall bear his guilt. And if he also pronounces the name of Adonai, he shall be put to death. The whole community shall stone him, stranger or citizen. If he has thus pronounced the name of God, he shall be put to death. Okay, so Phil, welcome back. There wasn't much we said other than just reading the first few verses here. So this is a very strange story. It just seems to come out of nowhere where we have this. Before they're talking about the showbread, and after this we have some other laws which seem somewhat related, but this just feels like it really came out of left field. So the first question we should really ask ourselves is, who is this guy? Right? All we know is that he's, right, it says, Vayetze ben Isha Yisraelit, this man who's the son of an Israelite woman, who's also the son of an Egyptian man, right, from amongst the Israelites. He came out. So who could this guy possibly be? So let's take a look. Who is his father? So Ibn Ezra says, when it says Ben Ish Mitzri, right, and it says, who is this person? It says Mit Yahed, right, or the person became Yehudi, became Jewish. This is Ibn Ezra's language for conversion. So what Ibn Ezra is saying is that it's the Egyptian man who converted to Judaism. He might have started as Egyptian, but he converted. Other people say that it's the son who had an Egyptian father and an Israelite mother. He himself converted. And there's this whole question of, well, why would he need to convert? If his mother is Jewish, his mother's an Israelite, then there would be no need for him to have to convert. And so that's why Ibn Ezra says that the Egyptian man, like, yes, he was originally Egyptian, but there where it says B'toch b'nei Yisrael, that he's there amongst the Israelites, that's to let us know the B'toch b'nei Yisrael is not the son, but it's referring to this Egyptian father. But the Egyptian father decided to throw his lot in with the Jews. That's why he had this Israelite wife. Okay, but Rashi, Ben Ish Mitzri, the son of Egyptian man, it was this Egyptian. It was the Egyptian whom Moses had killed. So if you remember going back to Exodus, to Shemot chapter 2, it says that Moses goes out, he sees these Egyptian taskmasters, beating up or possibly even killing a Hebrew. And what does Moses do? He looks left, he looks right, he sees that there's nobody there, and then he kills this man. So, which is a very different read from Ibn Ezra's. Now, the idea behind this, there's a lot more commentary here, specifically from Vayikra Rabbah. So I'll just kind of tell you what that is without having to bring in the text. But what it says is that Moses, when it says that Moses looked and saw that there was no man, Moses is being prophetic here and says, look, and says, oh, well, there's no child, there's no person who could possibly descend from this man who could possibly be an Israelite, therefore it would be okay to kill him. It is a horrible, horrible read of the text, but the idea here is that Moses said, okay, I can actually kill this guy. So the question is, well, if this is an Egyptian, and we remember this is an Egyptian taskmaster who Moses saw harming Israelites, why would Moses have, how could this Egyptian taskmaster then become the father of this son of an Israelite woman? Before I continue, any questions on all this stuff? Just raise your hand by your face if you have a question at all. Okay. So this is telling us a little bit about who the father might be. So let's understand who this mother might be, according to the rabbis. So here we have Rashi, Shlomit, right? The name Shlomit comes from the word shalom, right? Which means peace. So Shlomit, she was so called because she was always babbling, peace be with you, peace be with you, shalom aleichem, right? She used to continually babble with many words, bat dibri, daber, right? Meaning with words, utterances. She inquired after the health of everyone, right? How you doing? How you doing? So she was just she was a yenta, according to Rashi, because of her name Shlomit. And Rashi's bringing in Vayikra Rabbah for us. So this is, these are the rabbis from the time of the Talmud who are teaching us that this is why her name is Shlomit. But why? What's the significance of the name Bat Dibri? It says she was talkative, daber, talking with any man. And in consequence of this, she got into trouble. Now we should know there's euphemistic language that's employed in the Talmud all the time. They talk about a woman medaberet bashuk, a woman who speaks in the marketplace. The word shuk is also related to the word shok, which is a lap, thigh or a lap. And the idea here is that somebody who speaks in the marketplace is a floozy. I mean, that's pretty much the way that the rabbis would understand it. So the idea of her name being Shlomit Bat Dibri is trying to tell us she was a loose woman and she invited in whatever troubles befell her, such as possibly, attracting the eye of an Egyptian taskmaster, maybe. So let's see what else we can learn about this woman. Rabbeinu Bachya, the son of an Israelite woman. These words, where it says, Ish ben Isha Yisraelit, we see this twice, teach that the child of a sexual union between a pagan and a Jewish woman is not Jewish by birth. Although, according to the Talmud, such a child is Jewish, regardless of whether the mother was married or single at the time of that union, the fact remains that we consider the child as genetically tainted, not permitted to marry a priest if that child is a daughter. It would certainly not be permitted to share in the distribution of the land of Israel or make his home amongst the camps with the flags, as such membership was limited to the tribes for the names Lishmot Matot Avotam, right, according to the names of the tribes of the fathers. And this is what Ramban teaches us, Nachmanides. So what Rabbeinu Bachya is bringing in here is saying, yes, we want you to know that it's a Israelite woman, but we're telling you this, really drawing attention to the fact that she was Israelite and the father was not, to let you know that this guy, the son, was less than. So this is the thinking of the rabbis. Anybody who is the result of, I would say it's not really intermarriage, but interreligious relations, they are considered less than, from what we're seeing here. So if it's not sitting uncomfortably with you yet, just wait. It should get even more uncomfortable. But there should be some, this should really be sitting very uncomfortably with you. Any questions or thoughts or points up to this point? No. Yeah, Phil.
Well, it just seems that because of the harsh punishment, these commentators somehow have to justify that kind of harsh punishment for being blasphemous. And the way they're doing it is to kind of either denigrate or lower the reputation or their description of the two people. Because it seems like that's their ultimate goal, is to somehow justify the punishment by talking in a negative way about both of these people.
Yeah. So hold on to that. They're going to go even further to try to justify what's going on here. So this next one from Chizkuni is going to not only tell us a little bit about maybe who the mother was, but also going to tell us a little bit about what it was that he said, like why did he curse God? So this is a really fascinating one. God's name and cursed, right? He also used the tetragram, the four-letter name of God, when cursing. The sages claim that the wife of Neriah, a grandson of Dan, was Shlomit, the daughter of Divri, and that during the night following the day when Moses slew the Egyptian, who was one of the supervisors checking the number of bricks delivered by the Jewish slaves, raped her. So let's hold on. All right. So Neriah, right, is kind of outside this picture, right? This man, Israelite man, is married to an Israelite woman. That night, after Moses, kills this Egyptian taskmaster, other taskmasters come around, and as a punishment to the Israelites for what had happened to one of their colleagues, they're just really harsh with them. And one of them happens to rape Shlomit, the wife of Neriah. Okay. History has a way of repeating itself. According to Tanhuma, Emor 24, as well as Vayikra Rabbah 32:4, when the quarrel broke out, the Jewish man accused this man to be a bastard. This man asked the accuser where his father had been on the night when he claimed that his mother had been raped. The night he referred to was the night when his mother had supposedly been raped by an Egyptian overseer who had used a pretext to send her husband on an errand. The reason why the blasphemer used the proper name in cursing God was that he had overheard how Moses had used that name as a means to kill his father. And so it's getting a bit convoluted here. A couple of different ways to understand this. One is that a different taskmaster is the one who raped this man's mother, who raped Shlomit, and right, as a result of what happened to another taskmaster. Or it's possible that the father, the Ish Mitzri, who's the father of this man in our story, was the taskmaster who Moses killed. Right? So two different ways to see it. Both scenarios, though, we can see why this son of Shlomit might actually want to blame Moses to a degree. Right? Either, one, had Moses not killed the taskmaster, the other taskmasters would not have come and tried to get retribution, right? In which case, this man's mother would have been raped. He wouldn't have come into being. Right? The other possibility would be that his father was actually killed by Moses. Either scenario doesn't really bode too well for Moses in the eyes of the son of Shlomit. So we're starting to see the rabbis are saying that Shlomit is either loose or she's a victim. And right. But either way, what we're seeing is that the parentage of this figure in this story is viewed as less than by the rabbis, both the father and the mother. Yes, Phil.
Do we have any idea of what the actual blasphemy was, or what a tetragram? What's an example of a tetragram?
The tetragram is only Yud Hey Vav Hey. The tetragram literally just means the four-letter name of God, Yud Hey Vav Hey. So anytime it says the tetragram, that's what it talks about.
Well, if the son uttered that word, well, why would that be blasphemous?
It's not a matter of uttering the word, the name of God. It's how he uses the name of God. And again, we're going to see a little bit more. So hang tight. We're going to see. But this gives us a sense of how the rabbis are viewing the parents and trying to get us to understand where this man's coming from. The rabbis are doing this as a way of showing us that this man is less than, but we don't necessarily have to read it the way that the rabbis may have intended. So let's see. Why did they fight? Rashi says, they quarreled in or about the camp, right? B'machane. The word, the prefix b or ba usually means in, but it can also mean through or it can mean regarding. If you remember when Miriam and Aaron were gossiping about Moses, when the about Moses or about the news of Moses's wife, the prefix used there is b. So so here he's saying maybe it's not so much that they quarreled in the camp, but about the camp. And here Rashi says about matters connected with the camp. That is, as to where his proper place would be in the camp. And so what he's saying is, well, if your mother is from the tribe of Dan, but your father is an Egyptian, therefore maybe you're not actually part of the tribe of Dan, so therefore you don't have a place to set up camp. And as we see, there isn't a place in the camp for people who are necessarily outsiders. And Vayikra Rabbah is going to explain this a bit further for us. So it says, Vayetze ben Isha Yisraelit, and he went out. Right. So from where did he go out? Right. Surely he couldn't have been gone out from the camp because it says right, a fight broke out b'machane in the camp. So what did he come out from? So Rabbi Chia taught he came out with an argument from the section regarding the family connections. He had gone to pitch his tent in the camp of the tribe of Dan. They told him, what claim do you have to pitch your tent in the camp of Dan? He replied, I am from one of the daughters of the tribe of Dan. They said to him, it is written, every man by his own standard, right, that bears the sign of his father's house and not his mother's. He went into the judicial court of Moses to have the matter decided and came out from the court, declared that he, the son, was in the wrong. He then stood up and blasphemed. Right. So here he has, right. So what's really happening is, it's like, I am the bastard son of an Egyptian man and an Israelite woman. Therefore, I'm not part of an Israelite tribe because I don't have an Israelite father. And we know that the camps are set up by patrilineal descent regarding to the tribes. Therefore, I actually don't have a place to be. And when he goes into Moses to say, I should be able to camp out in the encampment of Dan, Moses says, no, you shouldn't, because your father wasn't from the tribe of Dan. It's like, well, so where am I supposed to be? Well, sorry, that's kind of your issue to deal with, right? Which really would mean that this guy's going to have to camp outside of all of the Israelites, which puts him in a very vulnerable position because right, there's not going to be any protection from him. Part of being in the camp is that you have this protection of the outer perimeter. There are people there to watch over in case any invaders come in. And if you're sent off on your own outside the camp, you are incredibly vulnerable. And right, that could make somebody feel pretty bad. Right? It's like, seriously? It could be one of two ways. Like, it could either be, my mother was raped. She had no control over this. Therefore, I had no control of the fact that I don't have an Israelite father. You're seriously going to punish me and put me in harm's way because of that? It's like, forget that, right? And so he swears and he curses out, like, damn this God who would set up such a society that I would have no place within it. We can get that. And if you say that, well, maybe he went into the court of Moshe, and Moshe may be the reason why his mother was raped in the first place, or why his father was killed in the first place. Not only is he really upset with the outcome of the hearing, right? But this is the damn guy who led to my whole suffering in the first place. This is the guy that God has chosen to be the leader of the people. Forget that. I'll use another word that starts with F, right? Forget that, right? Right? He is incredibly unhappy. He feels incredibly isolated and rejected. we start to get a sense of why it is that that he would be like this. I'm sorry, I see people trying to get in, and I realize they haven't been able to. They've been waiting patiently. Sorry about that, guys. I hope you were able to hear a little of what we've been talking about. But either way, so here we are. They are incredibly unhappy with how things have been. He's incredibly unhappy with how things have been going. So then the question becomes, all right, what happens next here? So how did he in fact blaspheme and curse? And he cursed, right? It doesn't say blessed, baruch, which is euphemistic language that's used for curse. Rather, it says cursed, kilel, right? Kilel. Klala is a word that we see all the time in the Torah for curse. But when somebody actually curses God, especially the name of God, they use this euphemism of barech, because God forbid you were to say somebody cursed the name of God. So the Torah actually employs this euphemistic language. So this teaches that one isn't executed when cursing God using any name other than Yud He Vav He. When one curses the proper name of God, the language of blessed is used. The language of curse is crude and disgusting, and thus cursing with any other name of God is not as bad as with God's proper name. And since it says he cursed, this implies that he cursed by way of crude language. In any case, it's explained that he blasphemed. And other names of God, and then there's kind of tangential, and other names of God include Shaddai, Tzevaot, Rachum, Chanun, Erech Apayim. These would be other names. So, and we know these as like El Shaddai or El Rachum, El Chanun. These are names that we understand of God. So what he's saying is when he cursed, it's like, damn that Shaddai, right? He didn't say, damn that Yod He Vav He, he said, damn that Shaddai. So right, this is giving us a sense of what the actual thing was that he did, right? Which, again, he didn't do anything terrible, but at least in this case, I mean, it was bad, but not really bad. What it does say though is because it says Vayikov et Shem Hashem, or et Hashem, it should say, and the word Vayikov comes from the root nakav, at nun kuf vav, vet, I should say, and nakav is related to nekeva, female, and nekeva is the word for female because it means punctured or perforated, where the word for male, zachor, or zachar, comes from zecher, but also like zicharon, which is a memorial, which is literally like a memorial. Like you build a memorial, and so the word zachar is actually related to the word sakar or cigar, as well as dakar or dagger, right? So the phallus is zachar, and that which is punctured with the phallus is nekeva or nakov. And so here, by saying he vaykovich et Hashem, and he said the name of God, it's not so much that he just said it. It would otherwise just say like vayamor, vayomer, right? Or vayedaber. Right? He uttered or said the name of God. But here it's like he punctured it, like he exploded, and he said it in a way that was trying to tear it down. Right? So that is the reason why he is going to be is killed. The simple cursing of God using any of the other names, the punishment would actually be excommunication, as we're about to see. So Rashi says here, yes, Joel.
Yes, what's the difference between Kalel and Chalel, Chilul?
So Kilel is, so one thing we should know is that all like three-letter, not all, but where Hebrew words most often have a three-letter root, sometimes there can be a two-letter root that is maybe even older that is still connected to some way. So you have Kilel, Kuf Lamed Lamed, which is literally to curse. Chilel, with a chet, is to make something profane, like Chol HaMoed. So Chol HaMoed is right the middle of of the holiday. It's not the Yom Tov. So it's the more mundane aspect. So Chalel is going to be that, like that which is more mundane. Also, Chalel can also mean like open, kind of just empty. So even that, like, which the understanding, if you're talking about a mundane day, it's kind of empty. It doesn't have the richness, like filling it as maybe a holy day would have. But then you even have other words like Hallel with a hey, which is to make something really special, to praise it, right? So the Lamed Lamed may very well have some older origin, but I think in this case, it's probably more just incidental, that there's some sort of connection there. But the word kilal, like klala, we say like bracha v'klala. Before you, there's bracha and klala. There's blessings and curses, and to choose wisely. Yeah, Joel.
Another word is galulot, that has that double lamed. I'm not exactly sure what the connection is, but whenever I see the double lamed, I get that feeling about what you just described very well.
And so like gilulim is going to be also right. So you have waves, like gal is part of a wave. You have circle, yeah. But I think that's going to be more of the gimel lamed root rather than the gimel lamed lamed. I don't think it's so much about the lamed lamed there as much as the gimel lamed. But yeah. All right. So here, and in blaspheme God's name, he's not liable to the death penalty at the hand of the judges unless he utters the divine tetragrammaton blasphemously, but not if he excreth the Lord by only mention of one of the substitutes for the divine name. Right. So here is, if he were to say something using God's name in a negative way, the Yud He Vav He in a negative way, that's what is punishable by death. Anything else would actually be punishable by excommunication. Right? And and this idea of he shall bear his sin is the person's, it is their own doing, right? And because if it's meaning nobody else is going to be doing anything to you, which means the punishment therefore is going to be excommunication, not necessarily stoning. Okay, so how is the stoning performed? Right. They shall lay their hands upon his head. This is, right, they said to him, this is the people who heard him curse God. They lay their hands on his head and they say, your blood is upon your head. We do not deserve punishment on account of your death, for it was you yourself who brought it about. And we see this oftentimes when there's stoning involved, which is most often understood as the people are about to kill somebody. And they're saying, we are not killing you. We are enacting a punishment upon you. And we are not necessarily, this is not us killing, right? This is just us enabling your punishment to be executed. So if you recall, also this is like, we just saw in this past week, and we see this often with the Kohanim placing their hands on the heads of animals before slaughter, right, to transfer the sins of a person to that animal, which is about to be killed. And so here, the people who are about to stone the blasphemer, right, they are putting their hands saying, this is not us, right? This is you, and you are the one who's deserving of this killing, not us. Right? So, but Chizkuni actually takes a bit deeper to help us understand really what's going on and really why they're transferring it. What was the reason for this procedure, which had to be performed on the bodies of all people about to be executed legally? The reason is that when judgment was passed, the witnesses on whose testimony the sentence was based had been forced during the proceedings to literally quote the words used by the blasphemer in doing so. This had made them perform the symbolic act by means of which they transferred any guilt that they had been burdened with through that to the blasphemer before the latter was executed. Right. So if I said I heard Ploni Almoni say, "Damned be God," and I'm sitting in court, and the judge says, "So what did you Ploni Almoni say? Tell me exactly what he said." I don't really want to say it because then I'm going to say it, and the judge says, "It's okay. you are a witness. After everything is done, you'll be able to place your hands on his head and transfer any guilt. So, okay, fine. He said, damned be God. And everybody says, oh, I can't believe he said it, but it's okay, because I didn't actually say it. I'm just quoting what this person said. And so what they're doing is saying, I had to transgress in court in order to testify against you. That's not on me. I would have had to say that had you not done it in the first place. I'm only the messenger, right? Don't kill me. And so they place the hands on the head of the person so they don't have any blame whatsoever. But the only people who can then stone are the people who actually heard. Right? It's not just any other people, right? It's the people who actually stone. Or the people who actually heard are the ones who stone, because right, they're the ones who have to touch the head first. They are transferring their guilt onto this person's head, and right, which should hopefully make somebody think twice before they testify against somebody and make sure they're really certain what they heard, especially since the very next verse after this story is don't kill. Anyone who kills another person is punished with death. That is literally the very next verse, right? So you should be taking testimony incredibly seriously. You do not want to bear false witness. Make sure you actually heard what you heard, because the only way that you're ever allowed to kill somebody is by means of punishment. And if you bear false witness, God help you, because you're going to be in trouble too. Yeah, Joel.
So the word smicha is the word we're looking at. So how would you relate that to the rabbinic ordination, which of course is smicha also?
So the whole idea of smicha here is literally, it's just placing one's hands on another's head is just a transference of anything. So if it's a transference of guilt, it goes from one's head to the next. If it's a transference of blessing, as parents will place their hands on the heads of their children Friday nights before they bless them, it's a transference of blessing. If you are standing for smicha to become a rabbi, it is a transference of authority from your rav upon you so that you also can then become a rav. So it's really just this idea of your hands to the head. Why that gesture versus other parts of the body, I honestly don't know. I've never gone deeper into the understanding of it, but there's just some sense of a shefa, of a flow of sorts that goes from the hands into the head. And maybe that's always why we talk about why I try to beat the knowledge into somebody's head. Right? This idea it's not going in smoothly, so maybe trying to smack that knowledge into their head. Who knows? Phil, did I see your hand up? No. Okay. All right. So yes, Aaron.
So you said that the witnesses are the ones who actually do the stoning, but within the parsha it says the whole community shall stone.
So it says kol ha'edah right here. Kol ha'edah, and so edah it's community. It's not kol b'nei Yisrael. It's not kol ha'machaneh, or it's kol ha'edah. And the word edah, meaning community, is also tied to the word ed, or witness. So all of those who bear testimony are those who are the ones who shall cast the stones. By the way, stoning also is not as we understand of just like taking a stone and throwing it at somebody. It's actually throwing somebody off a cliff, and if they don't die from that, rolling a boulder on top of them. And if they don't die from that, then chucking a whole bunch of stones at them. So it's pretty nasty, but it's not necessarily what we understand here. Okay, so before I continue with anything, any questions or thoughts on any of the stuff that we've seen here? Okay, so here's the thing. This guy, this story, again, the rabbis are, why is this story even here? And oftentimes, what the rabbis are telling us is that they mention this single Israelite woman, right, as a way to just let us know that all of the other Israelite women weren't easy, right? The rest of them were actually very upright and noble. And so that's why they just point out a single woman as an example, right? Which is, okay, a wonderful thought, I guess, but it's not terribly helpful. All right, and there's a lot of conversation here about conversion and somebody who has mixed heritage being less than, and this is what it's coming to teach us, right? Or that even if you're, right, even for those who are not Jewish, right, they still are not able to blaspheme God, right? That's the takeaway. That's so literally, like all of the commentaries on the page in the Mikro Kedolot, they're all pretty much, their takeaway is going to be one of those points, which is incredibly upsetting to me. That is the takeaway that these great rabbis have when they're looking at this story. But here's my takeaway. Why would this guy be, pronouncing why would this guy be fighting in the first place? Because the tribe of Dan didn't welcome him in. And why didn't they welcome him in? Because of his parentage, right? Why was he made to feel less than? Because his mother was either the victim of rape, or his mother was easy, right? Depending on how the rabbis want to paint a picture of her. But even if we look at maybe one of the most generous reads of who his father was, the idea of this Ish Mitzri, and Ibn Ezra says that the father converted. The fact is, here he's still referred to as Ish Mitzri. He's still being referred to as this other, Ish Mitzri bitoch b'nei Yisrael. Right? He might be amongst the Jewish people, but he's still other. What we see in both situations, both with the son trying to find a place to set up camp, as well as this description of this father and who he could be, is a refusal to fully welcome in and to include, and to try to find a way to make space for the other. Right? There isn't a threat here. Right? If the man's mother was in fact raped by an Egyptian, should he be punished for that? Should his mother be punished for that? Surely the tribe of Dan would look at their sister, their cousin, their niece, their daughter, and say, she was wronged, and we're going to look out for her however we can, including giving her son a place within our community. That would be the appropriate response. And even it's not a matter if she was raped, even if it's just that she married an Egyptian man who decided that he didn't want to be part of Egypt. He wanted to be part of the children of Israel, and he became a Jew. The fact that they couldn't fully acknowledge that and welcome him in is only going to make the rest of the family feel rejected. And if you push people away, they're going to push back. It's simple Newtonian physics, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so this is what we're seeing, I think, so much in Judaism today, right? And for the last probably 15 years, this has become a huge question in the Jewish world, specifically in the conservative world. Right? Reform Judaism hasn't struggled with this question as much, and Orthodoxy doesn't really address the question. But conservative Judaism raises this question: well, what do you do of, children of an intermarried couple, or what do you do with that intermarried couple? Do you welcome them in, or do you not? Do you have, when you have membership structure, is the non-Jewish partner considered a member of the synagogue or not? Right? If there's a bar bat mitzvah, what happens with the non-Jewish parents? Assuming that the child has gone through whatever they need to be halakhically Jewish, right? There's so many questions, right, about how do you actually welcome people in, and so often communities just push away, and they say, well, it's messy, it wasn't right in the first place, whatever it is, we're not going to welcome it. But what we're actually starting to see is that the communities that make space for the other and welcome them in and tell them they actually have a place within the community, yes, there are going to be some limitations because you are not Jewish, but meaning like you're not going to be able to read from the Torah. You're not going to be able to maybe be, president of the synagogue, right? But right, you are still a part of this community, and you are a welcomed part of this community. You have a place in this community. We're not going to, tell you that you're other. And especially if you did convert, we're not going to remind you at all of the fact that you are not born Jewish. We're not going to tell you, oh, you're a Jew by choice. You don't know as much, right? You are a part of the community. And so what we see is that communities that actually do that really well and make people feel welcoming. One, the children of those of intermarriage are actually that much more inclined to want to be part of Jewish community and seek Jewish experiences and marry Jewish. We also even see that the non-Jewish partner will oftentimes, on their own time, eventually decide maybe they in fact do want to become Jewish, right? For whatever reason. Maybe they were waiting because their parent or their grandparent was still alive and they would not want them to become Jewish. Or maybe they just didn't feel like they should, maybe they're, agnostic and couldn't imagine becoming another religion, because the idea of becoming a religion when you don't believe in God doesn't really make much sense, right? Who knows what it is? But when people feel welcome in the community, they actually will embrace it. But if we make people feel unwelcome, not only are they going to push it away, but they might even curse, right, the community. They'll curse our rabbis, they'll curse our leaders or Moshe, they will curse God. They'll say, this religion is stupid, who needs it, right? And they'll just walk away from it. So it's such a shame that the rabbis look at the story and just try to find the faults with the people, instead of trying to find the fault with the Israelite community, the tribe of Dan and everybody else. Moshe, why couldn't they actually just welcome people in and make them feel part of the community? So this is why this is actually one of my favorite parts, one of my favorite stories in the entire Torah, because it teaches us so much of what we do wrong and how we could actually make things so much better to avoid the situation in the first place. Yeah, Aaron. You muted yourself, so you have to unmute yourself.
So I sort of found it kind of interesting that in this example, we're specifically speaking of, an Israelite man and a non-Israelite man, or half, or chatzi, whatever, Eish Mitzray. Wouldn't the punishment be the same for the full Israelite man?
But if one were to curse God, yeah. But the full Israelite man was not the one who cursed God. It was just the fighting, right? So, but at the very end of this, right, we say that anyone who blasphemes,
right,
shall, right?
Yeah. So I just found it kind of interesting that they led with, with one way, and finished with the other. I don't know. It's just a formatting interesting.
No, it's so, and there's one of the things I love about of reading the Parsha, right, is that there's so many little breadcrumbs, and that's what exegesis is. That's what the idea of drash is, to try to tease from these little breadcrumbs. Why doesn't the story just tell us about a person who's 100% Jewish? Because, right, that would maybe not give us as much fertile ground to try to explain why he would be cursing God in the first place, right? But when we see it's the half Israelites, what reason could he possibly have for wanting to curse God? Well, there's so many reasons that we could give, right? And, right, sadly, again, for so many hundreds of years, tradition has failed to criticize itself, to say what was wrong, but just trying to point fingers at this family and say what was wrong with them, instead of saying what was wrong with us, right? Had everybody reacted differently in this story, had Moses either 40 years prior acted differently when he killed the Egyptian, or when he sat overhearing this court case, had he acted differently? Had the tribe of Dan acted differently? Right? There's so many different things that could have happened if people just actually did the right thing. And maybe this person, this Ben Isha Yisraelit, Ben Shlomit, would not have felt the need to curse anyways. So any other questions, thoughts, reflections? Yeah, Phil.
This sort of hits home because my son-in-law is Hindu, my daughter is Jewish, of course. And when they, were trying to find a rabbi to marry them, the rabbi that was willing to do that was the Amichai, the rabbi that in New York that started storytelling, was willing to do that. And he went through I believe it was Jewish Theological Seminary, was where he was granted a smicha. So what about the rabbi that may feel this way, that wants to be more inclusive, but the RA has the Rabbinic Assembly has these rules that don't permit that, including one of the rules was at that time, I don't know what it is currently, that a rabbi could not even attend an intermarriage, that it was even to attend an intermarriage was on the same level. I think there were 3 reasons the rabbi could be thrown out of the rabbinical assembly. And attending an interfaith marriage, I believe, was one of those. Am I correct on that? And what do you do personally, Rabbi Botnick? I mean, it's a very, very sensitive issue.
Not a big question at all, Phil. That's nothing. That's so. No, so obviously, there's a big issue that the conservative movement has been dealing with for many years at this point. I will say, actually, Amichai is a friend of mine. And I read the paper that he put out to describe, what the thought process was that he went through before he decided to officiate interfaith marriages. I should also point out that Amichai's brother is Rabbi Benny Lau of the Ramban Synagogue in Jerusalem. His cousin is Chief Rabbi Lau. His uncle was Chief Rabbi, right? So he comes from he's got a lot of yichus, right? So he comes from a very knowledgeable family, and he put a lot of thought into his approach. There's actually a part of his approach which I personally am very much in favor of, this idea of trying to come up with a third category, right? So there's a Jew and there's a non-Jew, but maybe there's a third category, the idea of people have different ideas of what to call. The idea of Krovei Yisrael, somebody who is close to Israel, or Ovei Yisrael, lovers of Israel. Yirei Hashem, people who are, God-fearing, which we see that language appear in Hallel, in the Psalms, from in Rosh Chodesh and all that. So the idea is somebody who is practicing another faith, who wants to marry a Jew. I personally would never officiate that. And I think the vast majority of my conservative colleagues feel the same way. They would never officiate that way. Because if you have somebody who's practicing Catholic and somebody who's Jewish, that just leads to a lot of confusion, and the odds are incredibly likely that the child will not grow up to be Jewish. They might, but the odds are not in their favor the odds are not in our favor that they will grow up to be Jewish, right? But if you have somebody who is not practicing another faith, even if they were brought up with another faith, and they want to marry somebody Jewish, there are numerous reasons why they don't want to convert. As I was saying before, they could have a parent or a grandparent who's still alive. It would kill them if they left their faith. They would feel rejected. There are people who, again, if you don't believe in God, especially if you grew up Christian, where the whole idea of taking on a faith is accepting Jesus as Lord and Savior, how could you become another religion if you actually don't believe in God? It just doesn't make sense to a lot of people, understandably. Right? So they also choose not to do it, or they don't want to feel coerced. I don't want to be told that I have to convert just to be able to marry this person. Forget that. I don't want to do that. Right? So for those people who fall into that category, the idea of we could offer another option of this Krovei Yisrael, or whatever you want to call it. Somebody who wants to be part of the Jewish community, but is not ready to be Jewish. They take a public vow that they are not going to have any other faith. They are going to raise any children Jewish, but for whatever reason, they don't want to be Jewish. They don't have to go through any learning. They don't have to go through mikveh or anything like that. If that person wanted to marry someone Jewish, I would be open to that. However, they would not be able to get married in a Jewish wedding ceremony. So if you're Catholic, there are actually 3 different types of wedding ceremonies. There's weddings between 2 people who are baptized Catholic, between a Catholic and another Christian, and a Catholic and a non-Christian. Depending on what the marriage is, it either takes place in the cathedral with mass, or it takes place somewhere else on church grounds, or it cannot happen on church property, based on the kind of the elevation, holiness of the union. Judaism doesn't have that. We just have one wedding, and the wedding consists of blessings. And the blessings are, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, our God. How can somebody who is not Jewish say blessings to sanctify a marriage? Blessing saying our God, if that is not their God, right? It doesn't make sense. That would be like me going to mass and taking communion, right? I would never do that. First of all, I would never be allowed to do it, but I also would never even dream of doing it because it's not my faith. And so when I say I'd be open to it, right, is that I'd be open to it if there were a generally accepted concept of this third category, and there was some other type of union ceremony that doesn't include blessings, but creates some sort of partnership. Doing that would allow people to would get married within a Jewish framework. Short of that, though, people want to, if somebody Jewish wants to marry somebody who's not Jewish, they can do so, right? They just don't need a rabbi to do it. First of all, anybody can officiate a marriage, but also let it be secular, right? Get married at the courts. Rose and I actually, our first marriage was the Beverly Hills courthouse, because we had to be married as soon as she got into the country for immigration. And we had planned our wedding for much further down the line because we didn't know when she'd be allowed into the country. So we figured we'd just set a date further into the future. So somebody who wants to marry someone who's not Jewish, let them have a secular wedding. But that non-Jewish partner should be very much welcome to the community. They should be made to feel part of the community, invited to take part and do things, and not feel rejected at all. And that Jewish partner should not feel that they are less than because they chose to spend their life with somebody who wasn't Jewish, right? They should also be made to feel welcome. The biggest issue that we face right now is just that there's no structure for there to be a religious wedding ceremony between a Jew and a non-Jew. But the greatest thing we could do would just to make people feel welcome, to be part of this community. So, any other questions or thoughts or comments on all this? Yes, Joel.
Just a question. You mentioned on your website that you have your source. I couldn't find it.
So if you go to mishkon.org on the little COVID section, the second drop down under the COVID is adult education. Yeah. And then then under the first thing for Torah Tuesdays, it says click here for the source sheet.
Okay, it says Torah Tuesdays.
Hold on one second. So I'll see if I can pull it up.
Oh yeah, I have it. Thank you very much.
Of course. So, all right, I'm going to disconnect this from Facebook and live stream. So I'll say so long to everyone.